Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And I got a very interesting story that's coming straight out of Denver, Colorado. And let's just get to it and we'll talk about it and analyze it afterwards. A financially troubled former funeral home owner kept a deceased woman's body in a hearse for 2 years at a house where police also found the cremated remains of at least 30 people, authorities said on Friday, in the latest case to underscore the lax oversight of Colorado's funeral home industry. The grisly discovery occurred February 6 during a court-ordered eviction of a house rented by Miles Hartford, the 33-year-old owner of Apollo Funeral Home and Cremation Services in the Denver suburb of Littleton, police said. It had been closed since September 2022. Mr. Hartford appears to have experienced financial trouble in his business. At times, he was not able to complete cremations to provide remains to families for services, Denver Police Commander Matt Clark said Friday. He said on occasion, Hartford might have provided family members with another person's ashes instead of the ashes of their loved ones. So this young man, 33 years old, had a funeral home. I don't know how he was able to get a funeral home at 33. It goes out of business. He had a woman's body, deceased body, in a hearse, in a car, parked in front of his house for 2 years. And he had 30 cremated remains of individuals also. Yeah, he had a deceased woman's body in a hearse for 2 years at a house where police found the cremated remains of at least 30 people. Wow. Man, I don't know what the oversight is like for funeral homes in Denver. Temporary urns, plastic boxes the size of a shoebox, were found in the crawl space of the house while a Denver sheriff's deputy oversaw the removal of Hartford's belongings, Clark said. Some of the boxes were empty. Other urns were found in a moving truck parked outside, and still others were in a hearse where investigators found the woman's body covered with blankets. She had been deceased for 2 years, Clark said. Hartford said she died in August 2022. The recovered remains appear to be associated with individuals who passed away between 2012 in 2021, he said. This goes all the way back to 2012, almost 12 years ago. You talk about mental illness being a real thing, and it is all over this country. This is why I'm doing this video. Authorities have been in contact with Hartford, and an arrest warrant was issued for him Friday. He's believed to be in the Denver area, and police were working to facilitate his arrest, Clark said, adding that Hartford has been cooperative with investigators. Former customer Crystalline Nunez said it took months to get the ashes of her grandfather and father back from Hartford after they died in 2021. Repeated phone calls and texts were met with a series of excuses, she said. Hartford at one point said he was in a car crash while transporting the remains of her grandfather and father, then later claimed his mother had gotten into a car accident while trying to deliver them. Nunez said, when the family offered to come pick them up, Hartford danced around the issue, she said. She got her grandfather's ashes after a few months and her father's ashes after nearly a year, but never received necklaces containing their remains that the family had paid for. Nunez said her family already had doubts that they had received the correct remains. The discovery at Hartford's house only reinforced those fears. So this gentleman got a woman, a deceased female corpse in a hearse, sitting outside his house for 2 years, and he's got 30 boxes of cremated ashes of people he don't even know who they are at his house, and his funeral home has gone out of business. It's making our whole family question whether or not everything was done the correct way, said Nunez. Her family has contacted police to determine if they have the correct remains. The discovery is the latest in a string of horrific cases involving funeral home operators in Colorado, which has some of the weakest oversight of the funeral home industry in the nation. The state has no routine inspections of funeral homes or qualification requirements for operators. That's very interesting. So when I talk about state laws versus federal laws, there is no real legal requirements and restrictions or oversight on funeral homes. They're doing all kinds of stuff in Colorado. A married couple is awaiting trial in Colorado Springs following their arrest last year for allegedly abandoning almost 200 bodies over several years inside a bug-infested facility and giving fake ashes to family members of the deceased. The operators of another funeral home in western Colorado, city of Montrose, received federal prison sentences last year for mail fraud after they were accused of selling body parts and distributing fake ashes. What in the world is going on in the state of Colorado? More than 24 additional criminal cases, and complaints involving Colorado funeral homes since 2007 were detailed in a January report to lawmakers from state regulators. The cases included bodies being mishandled, thefts of personal effects, improper embalming of bodies, mislabeled remains, and remains were never returned to the families. The report concluded that additional regulation for the industry was necessary to protect the public. What in the world is going on in Colorado, and what are they doing with deceased remains? The state of Colorado dealing with deceased individuals as bad as Alabama. I told you in the state of Alabama what they're doing with incarcerated prisoners. When they die, they are removing their body parts and selling them or harvest them at the University of Alabama Birmingham Medical School. Hartford is expected to be charged with abuse of a corpse, forgery of the death certificate, and theft of the money paid for the cremation. Other charges are possible as the investigation continues, said Denver District Attorney Beth McCann. Unreal. Wow. No voicemail was set up on a telephone number listed for Hartford. He also did not immediately respond to emails seeking comment. Clark said Hartford acknowledged to police that he owed money to several crematories in the area and none would cremate the 63-year-old woman's body that was in his hearse for 2 years. So he decided to store the body in the hearse. Her family told investigators they were given what they believed were the woman's ashes, which have been turned over to the office of the medical examiner. So he told the lady that was deceased in his hearse that she had been cremated, and he gave the family somebody else's ashes and said it was a 63-year-old woman. He is a cuckoo. He's got to go to jail. The family is devastated, Clark said. They're shocked. They were hurt by this. He said they believed that they were processing their grief with the remains that they had had the services with that. And then they come to find out that that was not the person that was processed. And in fact, she was being held in that hearse for 2 years, her corpse. The other cremains found on the property appear to have been professionally cremated, officials said. Investigators are checking labels on the cremains in state databases and meeting with families. As you can imagine, these are extremely difficult conversations to have, and the information comes as a shock to many of the families, several of whom believe they had the entire remains of their loved ones to be somebody else. He done switched ashes and all kinds of stuff. State licensing records show no disciplinary or board actions for Apollo Funeral and Cremation Services, which was licensed from March 2012 through May 2022. In 2018, Hartford and his company was sued by another funeral home company in order to pay about $27,000 for unspecified services the other funeral home provided, according to court records. The same company, Kansas-based Wilbert Funeral Services, sued Hartford and the company again in 2021, saying Hartford owed nearly $9,000 to another funeral home. The case is still pending. Last year, a woman who said she was Hartford's former employee sought a court order to keep him away from her over alleged harassment. In her application, she said she had paid Hartford to cremate 2 of her pets, but he didn't return them to her. There's no indication in court records that the order was granted. Man, this young man, 33-year-old Miles Hartford, with the way he was handling his funeral home and the cremation of these deceased individuals, I am glad that the state and he finally got arrested and brought to court, because the way he was treating deceased bodies, it seems like he might have turned a corner and started treating real life living individuals in a very egregious and terrible criminal manner, which could have led to some very dangerous situations. It sounds like this gentleman, Miles Hartford, 33, was having a mental breakdown and financial problems, and the stress of life was getting to him, and he did not know how to manage it. Mental illness is a real deal. The way he was handling deceased corpses can give you somewhat of an indication on how he could have flipped that to living individuals and turned into possibly a serial killer, or done some other devastating things to people that were alive. So we need to applaud the state of Colorado and the police department for finally getting a handle and arresting Mr. Hartford, because something was definitely wrong with him to have a 63-year-old female, deceased female corpse in his hearse for 2 years parked in front of his house. He was losing it each and every day. So this tells you a little bit about the funeral home business. I don't know a whole lot about it, what the regulatory processes are, but evidently they're very lax in the state of Colorado, and I think this case will bring some sunshine and light to them doing a better job on regulating funeral homes, laying of corpses, and families that lost loved ones. That is a very tough time to be in, and people need to come together in a positive way. And we definitely don't need this kind of mismanagement and mishandling of deceased loved ones in such a inhumane way, even though they have gone on to a better existence once they have died. So let's manifest our truth in the right direction. Tell me what you think of this particular story that took place in Denver with this financially troubled funeral home owner by the name of Miles Hartford out of Denver, and try to keep you with interesting commentary and interesting storylines, and let me know what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.